Lumber, Blue Moonlight, Wellesley Testosterone, FindMassMoney.com, Gem Plumbing, and by Golf.
On Boston's home for sports, 98.5.
So that's where we're going to start tonight, 617-779-0985 on the Baseball Hour. Red Sox take 2 out of 3 from the Braves, but honestly, one series is not going to convince me of anything with the Red Sox at the moment. I need them to play well over a longer period of time before I get too geeked up about a victory over a Braves team that frankly is playing like garbage. So, but where I want to get to tonight, or what I want to get to tonight at the start of the show, is that the Christian Campbell experiment at first base apparently is over. Over. Before it even got off the ground, really. Campbell was supposed to play first base yesterday in Atlanta against the Braves, and that plan was altered at the last minute, or so it seemed, largely because Abraham Toro's been playing well at first base, and the Red Sox didn't want to mess with it, so they kept Toro in the lineup, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, all of which is well and good. But it leads me to the question of ultimately the level of dysfunction in the Red Sox organization, and really the dynamic between Alex Cora and Craig Breslow, who gave Cora a vote of confidence over the weekend, basically an endorsement that Cora would remain in the job, and interestingly said that they expected to see the contract through. That is how Craig Breslow said it on Saturday. We plan to see through that, or see it through on the 3-year contract with Cora, which I would love to hear Red Sox fans on, by the way, in terms of how many people really, despise that idea, given the number of calls we've gotten on Cora this year. But here's the news on Campbell. Campbell was supposed to play yesterday, didn't, and then tonight, before the game, Alex Cora said that the idea of putting Campbell at first base is now out because Abraham Toro has played well there. Romy Gonzalez is coming off the disabled list, and now the Red Sox are seemingly going to go with some sort of platoon there at first base. Campbell will go back to second. Marcelo Meyer will generally play third, at least until Alex Bregman comes back from injury. So here's my question. Why the change? Why the change? Why all of a sudden have the Red Sox completely altered the plan, taking Campbell off of first base when they were seemingly committed to it and had him working out there, doing drills there for the last, call it, 3 weeks? Why all of a sudden did they expect to go in the other direction, or choose to go in the other direction? So I always hate sometimes the transition from one show, Jimmy, to the other, just because I'm all over the place trying to gather my notes and I'm kind of scattered. So I feel like I'm just sort of settling in now. But I don't understand the logic of going through what they've gone through with Christian Campbell, and now all of a sudden they decide that they're not going to go ahead and do it. So what was the point? What changed? Did somebody put the kibosh on it? Did Campbell himself say, I don't want to do it? And I doubt it was that, given that he's a rookie. But I wonder, what is going on over at Fenway Park? And I wonder about the dynamic between Breslow and Alex Cora. I do wonder about the dynamic there. And let me tell you why. And I want to go back to Friday afternoon for a minute. Chris Gasper is on the Felger and Maz show, as he is every Friday. I asked Gasper point blank a very broad question about Alex Cora that I think to me is at the center of all the stress that has existed in the Red Sox organization over the last several years. So I'll tell you what, let's actually play it for you. This was on Friday. This was from Felger and Maz. We played part of it on Friday night in the roundtable, but I want to go back to it now because I think it's an important thing. Jimmy Stewart, go ahead.
And I thought Sean McAdam had a really good story that I saw in Mass Live where he was talking to Alex Cora and talking about this element of having to be in a situation where you're trying to win and develop at the same time. And Cora said to Sean, it's trying to win as many games as possible, but also teaching the game. That's really hard, and I think those two things are in direct conflict. And I don't think there's a lot of managers in Boston who could do that successfully. I just don't.
Chris, do you think Cora believes in the organization?
No.
So that's the point to me that's at the middle of all of this. And I was kind of surprised that Chris Gasper answered that question on Friday the way he did. Does Alex Cora believe in the organization?
No.
I don't think he does either. I don't think Cora's believed in the organization for a long time. I think he came back in 2021 from his suspension, was grateful to get a job again in baseball, and the Red Sox had a good year that year, and he thought, okay, here we go again. And I think Cora felt in many ways it was his team. And then, with Chaim Bloom running the baseball operation, you know what happened over the next 2 or 3 years? I think Cora felt the organization slipping away from him and that he wasn't philosophically in line with the organization anymore. And with each passing year, it got a little worse. That's what I think happened. And so you started getting the comments about the roster being the roster. And Jimmy, who was the guy they had playing shortstop? Chorus, Pablo Reyes. I don't think he's an everyday player. And Cora made some comments that you would find out of character and both unusual and out of character for a major league manager. You almost never hear a major league manager say about a guy on his roster, I don't think he's an everyday player. It's kind of an insult. But it got worse and it got worse and it got worse to the point where just about everybody assumed that Cora was getting out of Dodge. Nobody thought he was going to re-sign last year, and then he did. Sam Kennedy even said at one point that he was happy that they, quote-unquote, called Cora's bluff. So they recognized how frustrated Cora was, but they thought it was just a lot of hot air. And my understanding at the time is the Red Sox thought that Cora was the right manager for them. And I look back on that comment now and I say, how could you possibly think that? This thing hasn't worked since 2001. That was the only time it worked. Cora was brought here in 2018 to manage a team of relatively established major leaguers that had made the postseason a couple of times and failed and needed to be pushed over the hump. And he was the right guy for that job. That team had talent. That team knew how to play, but didn't play well, largely because it didn't connect with its manager. A lot of young guys on that team at that time didn't connect with John Farrell. So they brought Cora in, who connected with the players and pushed them over the top. Then the team got dismantled. And Cora hasn't been the right guy since. And don't misunderstand what I'm saying now with some sort of idea that Cora's a bad manager, because I don't think he's a bad manager. But he's a bad fit for this version of the Red Sox. So now you have Marcelo Meyer up in the big leagues, Christian Campbell up in the big leagues, Ceddanne Rafaela, Brian Bayo, Wilyer Abreu, Tristan Casas at the beginning of the year. You get the idea. A lot of players being integrated into an environment in a big market that we thought was playoff ready. That's not the job Alex Cora signed up for when he came here in 2018. It is the job he signed up for when he re-signed last year. Cora still sounds unhappy to me. He doesn't like it being the team being in the spot it's in because there are lots of young guys on this roster, although it's not a super young team, which I'll get to in a moment. Because there was something written over the weekend about the Red Sox being a young team that, frankly, I'm getting tired of hearing. And maybe he is too, which is part of the reason there seems to be this back and forth with Craig Breslow in the same way that there was with Chaim Bloom. I do wonder about that. So if you think about it, Cora flips out when? When he has to teach. And he's got to teach young guys how to move runners over, turn double plays, play defensively when they've come through the minor leagues and shown an ability to hit, when he has to be player development, which is fine in a place like Pittsburgh, Kansas City, Tampa, markets where maybe the fan base will tolerate a rebuild and a player development operation. It's a hard thing to do in Boston. It always has been a hard thing to do. It's never been easy to play with that kind of team in this market. So do the fans like Meyer and Campbell and Roman Anthony whenever he gets here and Durant? Sure. At the same time, you watch them play. And again, just go back through the timeline and ask yourself this. When Durant got to the big leagues, was he ready to play in the majors? No. Tristan Casas, when he got here, wasn't ready. And in fact, I would even tell you that by definition, most minor leaguers, when they come to the big leagues, are not ready. The Red Sox used to know this. That's why they used to have the minor leaguers come up into an environment that had proven big league talent around it so that too much was not asked of the young players early in their careers. That was the idea. Jacoby Ellsbury, Dustin Pedroia, John Lester, Jonathan Papelbon, they were all eased into secondary or lower roles so that they could figure it out in the big leagues before something bigger was asked of them, whether they liked the player or not. And obviously when they brought him to the big leagues, the hope was that they would all turn into superstars or all-stars. So with Papelbon, he wasn't even a primary setup man. He was a middle relief guy. Jonathan Papelbon started in the 6th innings. And then as 2006 went on, they started giving him more and more responsibility because he was showing an ability to handle it. Dustin Pedroia hit at the bottom of the order. Jacoby Ellsbury hit at the bottom of the order. So now and Alex Cora recognized that at that time and how they did it and recognized the importance of doing it that way. He has said as much since taking over the Red Sox, that the best way to introduce minor league players was to give them lesser roles, or to introduce prospects was to give them lesser roles and let them figure it out. Then when they were ready, you give them more. Except that now what? Campbell ended up hitting cleanup. Marcelo Meyer ended up hitting cleanup. They're put into roles that require them to produce now. And as a result, I think their development is being stunted. It may be, in some cases, damaged permanently. Ceddanne Rafaela has not gotten any better. Brian Bayo has not gotten any better. Jarren Duran has kind of gone up and down, had a terrific year last year, but hasn't matched it this year. And the other thing is, he's what now, 28? 29? So you tell me, I think the Red Sox machine, the internal machine of the Red Sox is broken. That's what I think. I think there's a gap between uniformed and non-uniformed from the people in the clubhouse and those in the front office. And I think there has been for a long time. And every once in a while it gets a little bit better, but then it deteriorates again because the product on the field isn't what it should be. And it's not because I can't figure out which school, how the Red Sox want to play and which school of thought or philosophy they want to adhere to. And I don't think they can figure it out either. So 617-779-0985. With regard to the Red Sox being young, I want to hit on that specifically when we come back, and you'll hear from Craig Breslow over the weekend, who gave Alex Cora a vote of confidence, which I'm not buying for a second. I will do that next on the Baseball Hour.
You're listening.
speculation in different places about Alex and his performance, things like that. Would you say that no matter what, he'll be your manager through this season?
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of confidence in Alex's ability to lead this group. And that doesn't mean that we don't have conversations every day about what we might be missing or what more we can do. But we obviously made a commitment to Alex. We're going to see that through. And right now it's about making sure that we're doing everything we can to enable the 26 guys on our roster to help us win as many games as possible.
So again, that's Craig Breslow from Friday, or from over the weekend. I'm sorry. From over the weekend. We made a commitment to Alex. We're going to see that through. Who can possibly predict what's going to happen in a couple of years? Nobody can predict that. Nobody knows what's going to happen 2 years down the road. Now, if that's merely Breslow's way of saying we're not going to fire Alex Cora during the season, then fine. And this ownership, by the way, has never fired a manager in season. Anytime they've made changes, they've done it at the end of the year. They've resisted making managerial changes in the middle of a season. So, now, does that mean Cora is guaranteed to be here the next 3 years? Or this year and 2 others? No, of course not. Anybody can be fired at any time after year 1, after year 2, whatever it is. So when he says we're going to see that through, I wondered if that message was to Cora. And you can look at it as a vote of confidence. I also can't help but wonder if it's Breslow saying to Cora, hey, listen, you might not like what we're doing. You signed on here. Get on board or else. And when I say or else, but we're not going to fire you. So if you want to be miserable, go ahead and be miserable. You want to complain, go ahead and complain. But you're the manager. You signed on for 3 years. You're staying whether you like it or not. Because in baseball, remember, the money's fully guaranteed. Cora gets fired, he gets paid. In a lot of ways, what a gig that would be. Cora gets fired, collects his $22.5 million, and has to manage only, 60 games this year? Never going to happen. If you think Cora's going to get fired, you're out of your mind. It's not going to happen. And I think Breslow is even telling Cora, and we're not letting you go after this season either. So to me, that was a little bit of I feel like, again, I'm just telling you what my interpretation of it was. We're going to see it through. So he's saying you can bitch all you want. And I think Cora gave up the right to bitch about the Red Sox and the roster and everything else. I think he gave up the right to bitch when he signed that contract. So Craig Breslow says he's staying. Meanwhile, I think they don't see anything remotely on the same wavelength. I think Cora wants to win now, always has, and Breslow's trying to build an organization, which is why Roman Anthony isn't here. How do you explain Roman Anthony not being on this team when Ceddanne Raphael is playing every day? Is Ceddanne Raphael really the kind of guy that should be playing every day on a championship caliber team? My answer is no. And if you think he is, well, then you've lowered your standards too. 617-779-0985. Sean is in Marlboro, and Christian Campbell. Go ahead, Sean.
Hey, got a couple thoughts on this. So first, it almost feels like an engineer versus a mechanic. Like an engineer builds a car, and then the mechanic goes to work on it, and nothing makes sense. So from a team building standpoint, it's either the team is really well built, and you kind of do the Bill Belichick thing where you have guys that can play multiple positions, and you take a chance on someone, or the team is just horribly built, and now they're panicking, they're scrambling. You screwed up a year ago, 2 years ago, and it's one of those two things, and it's not the first one. Okay, so Sean, which was the first one again? Like an engineer versus mechanic. Like the car, they build it to run, and then you go to work on it, and you can't work on anything because nothing makes sense. Okay, but what's your opinion with regard to the team? Do you think the team is well built and not well managed, or do you think it's well managed and not well built? I think there's flaws on both ends. So I think they built it with flaws, which you have a young team, you have a bad team, you're going to have flaws everywhere, and you can't fix everything all at once. But I don't think Cora is doing all the fundamentals. Like, the team's playing, like, forget being rookies. They're just playing like crap. Like, they're playing like no one cares. Like, I don't know, that the players just don't care. They don't have the fundamentals.
So I don't think it's that they don't care. The fundamentals are something different. They're stupid. They're a stupid team. So to me, this is now, look, I've heard baseball people complain about this, that they don't teach the game in the minor leagues. That what they teach, the minor leagues are purely about individual development. Okay, so the manager fills out the lineup card, and it's not about winning. What they do in the minor leagues is just really try to develop the individual players, and that is through repetition. So what they are teaching them is how to hit, how to field, how to throw strikes. So they're teaching them the skills of the game, but they're not teaching them the teamwork part of the game. And when I say the teamwork part of the game, move a runner over, what guy is going to get to the big leagues hitting a ground ball to second base to move a runner from second to third? He's not. So you know what they're doing? Tell that guy to hit away. We'd rather have him step into the box and have quality at bats where he can learn something instead of giving himself up and trying to move a runner over. Fine, but you know what happens when they get to the big leagues? They can't play. They can't play the team game, which is fine in a place like Tampa where you can teach on the fly because there are 10,000 eyeballs in the stands, and most of the people in Florida don't give a rat's ass about whether the Rays make the playoffs or not. Try doing it in New York or Los Angeles or Chicago or Boston. Try doing it in one of those places and see what the reaction is. So I think the Red Sox are straddling this line where they can't decide whether they want to be a developmental team like the Rays or a big market team like the Yankees, and they're trying to be something in between. And you know what's happening? They're failing miserably. While I'm on, I'll tell you what, let me take this call, then I'll get to this topic too of how young the Red Sox are. Because everybody says it, they're young. I don't think they're as young as you think they are. Jeff is in Norwood. Jeff, go ahead.
Hey, how we doing, Tony?
Good.
The fact is that Cora took that extension knowing that the Red Sox were going to pursue some free agents and make some moves, and they did. And they added Crochet. They signed him long-term. They signed Bregman. They were in on Arenado. They were supposedly in on Soto. So he took that extension, I think, with the promise that the organization was going to move in a more competitive direction. And they did. Okay? So you're right. He has no right to bitch. He took the money. The problem is he doesn't know how to handle a team, as far as I'm concerned, when there are problems and issues and positional needs that needed to be filled internally. I just don't think he has the capacity to manage at least the way he has in the past, and or something went wrong with him and Breslow since that extension.
Yeah.
Whatever that is.
So Jeff, this is what I'm wondering about. I mean, you say he doesn't have the capacity. It's either that or he has the capacity and doesn't want to do it. Now that he has the contract, is that it? So, look, I got my money. They want me to teach. I don't want to teach. I'm not a teacher. I'm not here to babysit. There are lots of managers that don't think they're babysitters. And, look, it's one thing to say, I have a young team and I have to babysit all 25 of them, 26 of them. It's another thing to say, I have a big league team and we get a couple of young guys that we have to bring along, but I know the veteran guys can handle themselves and they'll police the clubhouse for me. So my level of teaching is really minimal, and I got veteran guys that can also help with that. Believe me when I tell you, Terry Francona felt this way as a manager, and I'm sure he passed it on to Alex Cora. The clubhouse has to be run by the players. That was Francona's belief. He could call in a guy and say, hey, look, you're not doing the job. There's some sort of issue, or I don't like your attitude, or you have to change the way you're approaching it. He can say it all he wants. If the player hears it from a teammate whom he believes in and who's a peer and an ally, it means more. And I agree with that part of it. But the problem is they hired Alex Cora to do this job, and I don't think Cora wants to do that. As for the notion that this team is young, stop and ask yourself, really, how young is it? Or is it deceptively young? And when I say deceptively young, what I mean is, I should rephrase that. if it's young on the surface, but not really as young as you think. And I'll explain that when we come back. It's kind of convoluted, but you get the idea. The bottom line is this. These quote-unquote, all these young guys that the Red Sox have, I don't really know how young most of them are anymore. We'll get to that when we come back on the Baseball Hour. Kevin Managerial will get you caught up on headlines.
the Sports Hub.
Chapman eyes the runner. Swing and a miss to put him away and end the ball game. That felt right. 3-1. Red Sox win it. They take the series. Crochet was the story. Excellent bullpen, too, but the starter was brilliant.
No, you got exactly what you needed from Garrett Crochet. He's the ace of this staff, and he went out and he looked every bit of it. But I tell you, one pleasant surprise here is Trevor Story. You need Trevor Story. You need guys like Campbell. You need a right-handed bat here to get going. Made a big play defensively out there at shortstop. And then offensively, of course, the bases clearing triple, a couple of hits, a double rather. It was nice to see for him, but you're right. It's all about this man, Garrett Crochet, in the mound.
Final call from yesterday's game. And I don't want to get too geeked up about taking 2 out of 3 from the Braves, and I don't want to get too geeked up about Trevor Story either. Just a quick note on Story. Hit a home run on Friday night, 7th of the season. All 7 have been on off-speed pitches. Sliders and change-ups, hanging splitters, whatever. And let's call it 80 to 85 mile an hour range. Okay, all of them. Then yesterday he hit a 3-run double on a fastball off the top of the wall in center field. Yeah, Mavs, what about that one? 92 miles an hour. So, which what I would say is pretty much his ceiling. 80 to 92, he's got a chance. Anything 94, 95 and above, bye-bye. So I still haven't seen him really hit a legitimate fastball with any sort of authority, but that's an aside. I was reading Peter Abraham's story in the Globe over the weekend on the comments from Craig Breslow. Breslow made this comment, which, by the way, I do sense there's more urgency from Breslow and Cora in the last 4 or 5 days. All of a sudden, as if to say, okay, let's get our heads out of our asses. We got to get on the same page here and win. Which tells me that they're not on the same page. And again, when Cora starts, getting his back up, you can always tell that he's probably pissed off at the roster and he doesn't think it's his fault. Cora rarely thinks it's his fault. And in the grand scheme of things, again, the manager's, to me, a passenger when it comes to winning and losing. He can screw up more games than he can win. But at the end of the day, you need players. Baseball's largely based on individual matchups. You can't double team. Okay, in other sports, you can double team. In baseball, you can't double team. They tried to. They called it a shift. It got outlawed. So anyway, Breslow said, we have to be better. I know we're young, but we expect better from this group. I think the expectations are high for this organization. We've got to put everything behind us. So, Breslow says, I know we're young, but we expect better from this group. Jimmy Stewart, are the Red Sox young?
I don't consider them young.
So I don't either. And I haven't even looked up the average age of their roster versus everyone else's. But when I go through their lineup and I say, okay, so who's he talking about? So Meyer just got here and wasn't on the roster to start the season. Campbell is young. Campbell's 23 and he's a rookie. So I am factoring in age and service time, just so we're clear. So you have a young guy who is a rookie. That's young. When you have a guy like, let me give you another one, Justin Slayton, who is in his second full big league season, you could say he's relatively inexperienced. He's 27.
And he was a Rule 5 pick.
Okay, so this is it, Jimmy, is that now I'm presuming there were some injuries and things early in his career. He's a pitcher. So, but Justin Slayton is not young. He's inexperienced. There's a little bit of a difference. And I know that people look frequently at those two things and say they're mutually exclusive. Or they're synonyms. Is Tanner Houck young? Tanner Houck's 29. Brian Bayo's 26. He's in his third or fourth year in the big leagues. I think it's year 3. Garrett Crochet's 26, second full year as a starter, but he's been in the big leagues for a few years. So I don't know that I would call 26 young anymore. And this is my issue. This idea that the Red Sox are quote-unquote young, nah, they're really not. Narvaez is 26. Casas is 25, and again, been in the big leagues for 3 years. Trevor Story's 32. We don't even have to talk about him. Bregman's 31. Jarren Duran's 28. He's not young anymore. And you might say, well, he's just now going into his peak years. Correct. But he's been around for 4 years. Now, some of that's not his fault. He shouldn't have been brought to the majors when he was. He wasn't ready. Clearly. And if they had had veteran guys around him and a good team at that time, they might have been able to carry him in left field. But in the role he was in back in 2022, the team was terrible. He wasn't ready to put that team on his shoulders. That's bad player development. Ceddanne Rafael is only 24. He's been here basically 3 years. So he's another one that I would say, I'm not calling Ceddanne Rafael young anymore. Sorry. William Abreu won a Gold Glove last year, was in the Rookie of the Year conversation, but he's also 26. So it's not like he came up at age 22. I don't think Abreu's all that young. Devers is 28 and has been in the big leagues for 8 years? David Hamilton's 27. Ref Snyder's 34. Connor Wong is 29. They traded Mookie Betts 5 years ago. Wong has been here for a few years. He's not young. He's not a kid. He should know how to play fundamental baseball. Rafaela should know how to play fundamental baseball by now. He should have shown signs of improvement. Bayo should have shown signs of improvement. Again, Meyer, different. He just got here. Very little big league experience, and he's 22. Anthony is 20 with no big league experience and hasn't even gotten here yet. That qualifies as young. I mentioned Buehler. I mentioned Houck. Lucas Giolito, 30 years old. Chapman's 37. Greg Weisser's 30. Bernardino's 33. Justin Wilson's 37. Now, if I had to guess, Cora, when he talks about young or he talks about the roster, my guess is he's most pissed off about the bullpen, which has cost them a handful of games, maybe more than that. But in the American League this year, and when you're the Red Sox, a handful makes all the difference in the world. So the Red Sox at the moment are 29 and 32. You want to say the bullpen has blown them 4 or 5 games? Well, just do the math. That all of a sudden becomes 33 and 28. Now you're in the playoffs. So that can make a big difference. 34 and 28, whatever it is, Jimmy. You get the idea. Felger and Maz math, always dangerous to do on the air and live. Let's go to Matt and Braintree on Alex Cora. Go ahead, Matt.
Tony, this guy's head is not in the game. I'm listening to the pregame, and they're asking him about how, the Yankees are coming up. Is there any, real big feeling of, not desperation, but, of just getting ready to face the chief rival? And his answer is, oh, yeah, I can feel the anticipation because me and my family have a lot of plans. His family's coming up, and they're going to go get ice cream and do all these other things in New York. How tone-deaf of an answer is that? I know it's just probably a throwaway comment, but, that's the answer you give? Thanks.
So, Matt, I'll tell you what. I don't think it's tone-deaf. When he answers some of those questions that way, I'll tell you how I read it. You want to ask me about the Yankees? Well, we can barely beat the White Sox. What did they go, 4-3 against the White Sox, Jimmy? Is that what the record was? 4-3 in the 7 games against Chicago? You want to ask me about the Yankees, who are in first place in the division and playing the Dodgers last night on national TV, and you want to ask me about the Yankees? We're not in their class. We're not on their level. Don't ask me about the Yankees. So that's how I interpret it. The Yankees are 36 and 22. They're 14 games over. The Red Sox are 8.5 games out of first place. You think Cora looks at the Yankees right now and says, oh, we're right there with them? At the beginning of the year, people were talking about the Red Sox contending with the Yankees. See, to me, that is sort of a little dig at the front office or management and ownership. It's Cora's way of saying, I'm not going to talk about the Yankees. They're going nose to nose with the Dodgers. They were just in the World Series. I've got Marcelo Meyer playing third, Christian Campbell playing second. Those two just got here. My first baseman's out for the year. My third baseman's out for the year. My DH doesn't want to play in the field anymore and turns his back on me any chance I get. Cora's feeling sorry for himself. So again, which I understand when it comes to big league managers. I would hate to be a manager in a small market like Pittsburgh. Can you imagine what that job is like? Having to show up at the ballpark every day with a suck team and a suck lineup and no hope and going to work just to cash the check? Or because you want to be a manager somewhere else in 5 or 10 years? Now, if it's your first big league job, you probably jump at the opportunity. That guy might have a right to feel sorry for himself. Cora signed on for this. 3 years, $22.5 million. He signed on knowing what it could be. The previous 2 or 3 years were bad. He signed on anyway. So I don't know really that he has a right to bitch about anything anymore or feel sorry for himself. But this is where the Red Sox are. You want to understand why they're having the trouble they're having? Because the manager doesn't believe in the organization. The organization knows it. They hired him anyway. He signed anyway. They're a bad match. They've been a bad match for a few years. But for whatever reason, they felt compelled to bring him back because what? He gives them credibility, or he pushes back on the analytics, or the fans like him and the team might not be that good, or what? Or he gives them a shield. What is it? But it's something like that. It's not because he and Breslow work well together and think the same. So it's one thing to say you don't want everybody in your organization to think alike, but philosophically you want them to be on the same page. And I don't think they are. I don't think Cora's on the same page anyway. And again, we can examine whether they should have signed him or whether he should have signed, or both, but I think it's a bad fit, and it's been a bad fit for a while. We'll wrap it up on the baseball hour when we come back.
Crochet is back out there. Cut on and miss. Struck him out as he picks up number 10. And he fans the leadoff man in the 7th.
21 swing and misses total now.
2-strike pitch again. And in there for strike 3. He'll sit him down. He puts down Allen this time. Back-to-back Ks. 11 in the book. Cut on and miss. Struck him out. What a performance today by Garrett Crochet. He strikes out the side in the 7th inning. 112 pitches. That is a career high. And what a way to end that performance.
I thought yesterday was Garrett Crochet's best game of the year. I thought he was absolutely terrific. And I don't just mean the 12 strikeouts and the swing and misses. And I just mean the spot. When you look at it, finale of the series, you have a chance to win a series. Crochet gets some runs in the 1st inning. One of my gripes, when you pay a guy like Crochet and you acquire him, you pay him to win the game 3-1. You pay him to win the game 2-0. That's the idea. Don't just be a number 1 starter, be an ace. Or as the saying used to be, don't just be an ace, be the ace. And I thought in this game, I thought he was. I thought it was really the first time all year you really got to see it. And for those of you who get off on a guy who throws 6 pitches, which, by the way, is a load of crap, it used to be the fastball came in 2 varieties, but it was still a fastball. One's a 2-seamer, one's a 4-seamer. Now, everybody feels compelled to identify those as 2 pitches. They're different, but they're still fastballs. One's inspired to get a ground ball. One is inspired to get a swing and miss or a pop-up. You get the idea. Crochet basically pitched yesterday with 2 pitches. Fastball, cutter. That was it. He threw a couple of changes and a couple of curveballs, or they might have been sweepers, breaking pitches. But it was really fastball, cutter the whole game. Power pitching the whole time, which to me is the way to go when you have his stuff. And after much drama and him telling everybody he's throwing a fastball in the first pitch, he threw one to Ronald Acuna Jr., who fouled it off. He then struck him out on 4 pitches, the final one of which was a nasty cut fastball. I thought that was the best cut fastball he had all year. And more important than anything, because again, to me, it's about pitching to the situation and the spot. Series finale, end of a road trip, chance to win the series. Your offense got you 3 runs in the top half of the inning. Crochet gave up 1 in the bottom half on a home run by Marcell Ozuna. That was it. The Braves didn't score again. He went 7, struck out 12, dominated the strike zone, dominated the game. That was an ace performance. So now if he had lost 1-0, I would tell you, okay, I need to see when the 1 run scored. He did it against Toronto early in the year. It was a 0-0 game in the 6th. He gave up a home run to George Springer and they got behind 1-0. I'm sorry. I don't have a lot of sympathy for that. I know they didn't get him any runs. They ended up losing the game 6-1 against Toronto when the bullpen crapped out. But Crochet got the loss because the game was scoreless in the 6th. At that point, it's a tight game. Don't give up a run. And I'm not saying you can do that every outing. Some nights you got to win 3-1 or 1-0. Yesterday he won 3-1. Kevin Majori's got your headlines. Red Sox open up tonight at home against the Angels over at Fenway. Hunter Dobbins on the mound. We'll catch you tomorrow.
From the Telfair Type Studios, WBC FM and HD1.
It's not just the game.